Revelation 17, verse 16, and I'll read the whole verse. Then I'll come back to it and read a couple of verses above and below the 16th verse of Revelation 17. We're in the time of the fulfillment of these prophecies that are found throughout the scriptures in the Old and in the New Testament, and especially in the book of Revelation, which all the prophecies are being fulfilled right before your eyes. So are we living in Bible times? You're damn right. We're living in the times of the end. This is Revelation 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns, which the 10 horns, now there's about 29 of them, which represent the EU nations. And I always go into that. That was formed in 1957-58. I believe they received their charter, or they were officially recognized as the EU. At first it was the EEC, the European Economic Community. Then there was another name in between that, and finally it is called the EU, which is the EU, European Union. Anyway, it says here, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. The whore is America. The whore is Babylon the Great, that great city. If you go down, let me see if I'm correct. Right. If you jump down to the 18th verse, Revelation 17, verse 18, and the woman, which is the whore, which thou sawest, is that great city. That great city is America, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And I'm going to show you that they reign over the kings of the earth. They get the European Union, the EU nations, boots to shaking. Anyway, let me come back to the 16th verse. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, which is America, not the Roman Catholic Church or Vatican City. Anybody that's teaching that, the Most High is not dealing with you. The whore is America. It also tells you that in the 15th verse. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, a whore that sitteth upon many waters. That's in the beginning of the 17th chapter. Where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. 16th verse again. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. The 10 horns represents the EU nations. Doesn't represent 10 antichrists. There's going to be 10 antichrists. They don't talk about no 10 antichrists. It's talking about the EU nations, which in the beginning were 10 that spread to other European nations. What you got to understand, you have European nations that break off into other nations. Give you two examples. You had Great Britain and you had Ireland, two separate nations that became one. That's why it's called the United Kingdom, because you have those two nations in the roundabout nations of Europe that are part of that bringing together, which make up the UK. But you had those two nations. They were two separate nations that became one. Then you had Portugal, which came out of who? Which came out of Spain. That's why if you go down to Manhattan to the European Union Consulate, which you used to pass every day, every Saturday when we used to go down on 34th Street, there's a blue flag with 12, I believe it was 12 stars, but it's supposed to be 10 stars. The extra 2 stars came from Ireland, and Portugal, Portugal was part of Spain, and Ireland was a part of England, which became the UK. So there's really 10 of them. Anyway, it says 16 verse, Revelation 17 verse 16. And I'm going to get into this article which led me to these precepts. It says, in the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. The whore is America, not the Vatican City or the Roman Catholic Church. This guy, Elder Barak, said that the whore represents the Roman Catholic Church or Vatican City, which is totally, I'm not saying that he's a liar. I'm saying that he doesn't understand those scriptures. And that was never taught at the Old One West. It says, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. What fire is it talking about? The missiles that they possess. So let me go into the article. I came across a video on RT about this story about Nord Stream 2. So I said, let me look at it. And then I said, let me to get more into it, get into the news articles concerning Nord Stream 2. And this is one of the reasons why ultimately the Most High puts it in their minds to do so, to hate the whore, because this is the Most High's program. But there's going to be reasons behind why they're going to ultimately. At first, they're going to start it. They're going to try to defend the earth from our Lord and the angels coming down to deliver the elect of Israel, the ones that have not taken the mark of the beast. And I said in previous videos, the mark of the beast is basically a digital all. Read about the all in the law. When you love your master, you say, I don't want to be free from my master. So a sign of that is to put an all, which is like an earring in your ear, and that symbolizes, when you see that all, that means you love your master and you're going to work for your master until you die. Because what happened when the Hebrew had Hebrew servants, we can use the word slaves. They worked, the male Hebrew that worked for the male master, pursuant to the law, he worked for 7 years, and then he was set free, and he was given enough substance so he can get servants. And normally what happened back then was, when you was about 12, 13 years old, you left your parents, or you stay with your parents, but you worked for another Hebrew that was rich, relatively rich, and you did what he wanted you to do for 7 years. And in that 7-year period, he gave you, this is what Esau got the severance pay from. Severance means to cut. You know, we're cutting you off, whether we went out of business, whether we are laying people off, whether we're cutting people off. Even if you get fired, they got to give you some form of a severance, depending on how many years you put in. So that's where Esau got that severance pay from. The statute of limitations, he got that from the scriptures, which is the year of release and ultimately the year of Jubilee. So you got your severance pay going back to the time of the Lord, back in the ancient world. You worked 7 years and you received severance. I'll use the word severance, and you had enough substance to start your own thing. But then sometimes you had fell in love with a Hebrew woman servant, and you had children with that Hebrew woman servant, which made you husband and wife. So when the time of freedom came, you you didn't want to leave because you couldn't take your wife, because it's the master, the Hebrew master. He had possession of your wife and your children forever, because you dealt with that woman in when you were in that 7-year period. So for the majority of the fact that the Hebrew slave wanted to stay with his master forever, because he loved his woman and he loved his children, which is the master's property. So he went through the ceremony of getting the oil in his ear. So ultimately, and I said this before, what Esau wants to do is put a digital oil in your right hand on your forehead. So when the Most High comes back to deliver you, he's not going to deliver you because you're telling the Most High, I don't want to be delivered. I love Esau. All right? You other kids, you better get with the program. You better start teaching. You better start saying, well, we were wrong. GMS was correct. The mark of the beast is the microchip before it's too late, because you're going to have a lot of scrambling going on. Anyway, it says, this is the article right here. It says European companies back out of Nord Stream 2 U.S. report. And this is the reason why they're backing out. And this is the reason why they're ultimately going to shoot, missiles on Babylon the Great. Not necessarily from this thing that's taking place, but there's going to be a number of things that's going to take place. It says 18 companies have terminated their participation or are in the process of withdrawing following U.S. sanctions. U.S. sanctions. Now, when you look up the word sanctions, it's a form of punishment. Like during the time of the Clinton era, he had put sanctions on Iran, and basically when they needed medical pharmaceuticals, they were blocked from getting it. So a lot of people got sick, and a lot of people died, and a lot of children died. So that's showing you that Esau, he don't give a shit, man. If you're not going in his direction, he'll kill you. He won't actually necessarily come and kill you with guns or missiles, which he does that anyway. But he'll do it by cutting off something that you need, pharmaceuticals, medication. Anyway, let me finish reading. It says in these nations are in participation or process of withdrawing following U.S. sanctions. Sanctions meaning threat. Like if you continue to deal with this Nord Stream 2, which is a pipeline, I'm going to read about it, which is a pipeline from Russia to Europe, because Russia is supplying oil to the European nations now, so they came together in the pact. So the U.S. is against it, because why? Because that's messing up their money, so to speak. It says the U.S. has only imposed sanctions on one company, but has threatened to take further actions, bring more sanctions. It says